Violence within the workplace is increasingly being recognised as an issue for health service providers. In 2004, the Victorian Government established the Victorian Task Force on Violence in Nursing to examine key issues and recommend strategies to address occupational violence against nurses. The task force put forward 29 recommendations aimed at addressing this problem in a more consistent and coordinated manner. The Victorian Government has made a commitment to these 29 recommendations and is implementing a range of initiatives to better manage and prevent occupational violence in our health services. An important part of the picture is recognising the impact of occupational violence on healthcare workers. Like police officers, healthcare workers are often dealing with highly charged, complex and sensitive issues where illness and emotional states need to be recognised and managed. How colleagues, managers and police respond to occupational violence in our health services is critical. Working in partnership is absolutely essential.
I think every nurse that I've worked with, if they've worked in the ED for probably longer than a year or two, they would have some sort of story that they could tell you about occupational violence.
Every day is a challenge. You never know what's going to come through the door.
I mean, we face all sorts of things in the department every day.
Hitting, kicking, biting, spitting.
Punch, bitten, headbutt, kicks.
Anything from being yelled at, sworn at, physical violence, and aggression, intimidation, weapons, it's the lot.
We had an incident not long ago where one of our nurses was walking past just a cubicle in the emergency department, and this not so pleasant patient just leapt out screaming at her like a banshee and just grabbed her back of her hair. This girl had quite long hair in a ponytail, and she actually ripped out a chunk of hair in her hand and pulled off a bit of scalp, and it was bleeding.
We had a young client who was in a wheelchair, and he had a lot of physical illnesses as long as mental health issues. And he would target staff on a daily basis. So he'd do things like spit, bite, throw parts of his wheelchair, the arms, the legs, the handles off the back, anything he could get he'd throw at you.
I was in another cubicle and I could hear a female voice getting very agitated in the cubicle next to me. So of course I always go investigate because I'd like someone to come and do that for me if I was having that problem. And I found a patient who was very upset and didn't want to be there anymore. She basically let fly and hit me in the face and then grabbed me by the hair and pulled me to the ground and then, gave me another couple of hits for good measure and then took off.
When there's events like this where people are consistently getting hurt or injured, it really starts to wear on the team. People start to get ill. They lose, it's called compassion fatigue, and you lose the ability to actually care.
You do have a lack of confidence in dealing with these patients. You get scared, you remember, especially if it's fairly fresh in your mind.
I do go to work thinking about it, and I am very careful what I tell my family of things that happen like that at work, because I don't want them to be put off the fact I can come into contact with violence at work.
It just makes us feel like what we're doing sometimes isn't worth it. For if that's what's going to happen to us at work, we feel that we're not important, and we don't have the comebacks that the police do. We don't have weapons to stop people doing that. We're not allowed to touch anyone, so we feel very powerless.
It was late one evening. We received a telephone call in relation to an offender who had produced a firearm within the casualty section.
They found the weapon, which turned out to be a fake gun. But John and his care of me was fantastic. He took me aside, and the fact that he was able to tell me then that, you know, they were charging her and that, you know, they were going to proceed with making a brief and stuff, that was really reassuring. That sort of gave me some closure.
It's very important for nurses to know that we have a code of practice and procedures in that we will investigate assaults and crime and criminal activity which may involve them or the hospital.
John took it really seriously. It didn't matter whether she was, you know, drug affected or not. The bottom line is you can't treat health professionals like this.
Also important that we have nurses not feeling vulnerable, that we will investigate, that they have rights and we will treat it seriously.
What happens every day is, with aggression, is people tend to play it down because it happens every day, it's frequent. I've had plenty of colleagues go to the police who say, you know, look, it happened at work, they're a mental health patient, they're this, they're drug affected, the charges won't stick.
Lindy was one of the nurses. She was pregnant at the time and she was trying to help me get this young fella off this tilt table.
And when he saw me come, like before they got him, he deliberately, knowing I was pregnant,
he reached up and punched her, attempted to punch her in the tummy, in her pregnant belly.
And I just got his hand, like, just before he did.
And of course, everywhere in community, your role is, you know, if you see a pregnant woman getting attacked, you get really angry and fire up.
I was really upset about it. I rang the unit manager straight away and he encouraged me to call the police. That's not acceptable, you know, that's premeditated.
And when the police were told about this, they said, well, you're pregnant, what are you doing here?
And I just thought that was a bit of a negative, you know, outcome.
It ends up making you feel like a target, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you got no...
But it's just, well, it's part of the job, so it's your fault for being here, really.
For us to report it to the police, we think it's a serious incident and we feel threatened, and that's why we've called them, is that we haven't felt safe and we've felt threatened in our workplace, and so we want them to come in and help us. And if they just say it's not worth it, don't worry about it, we're then hesitant to call them again because we don't think that they will take us seriously.
When they come and you know, they come in their numbers and, you know, and it is a very volatile situation, having them there, it creates that level of calm. You know that all my job is going to be is my nursing job. I'm not going to have to pay security guard or policeman or try and restrain somebody or, you know, stop somebody from leaving because we really want to treat them. You know, I don't have to do that policing job, so I can just be a nurse.
The police procedure when they deliver somebody to our ED, what supposed to happen and what does happen are sometimes two different things.
There are instances where we hear of police officers dropping and running patients because they're tied up with other jobs.
Often they'll just come in and say, here's this patient, see ya, we're going.
And you're left with this person to deal with whatever aggression or issues or whatever's going on with them.
We'd love them to just say, are you happy that we're leaving? Do you feel safe with this person? And if we go, yes, we're happy, that would be fantastic.
The issues that once they're in here, the police don't see it as a police matter anymore very often. They just see it as, well, that's the psych problem and that's the end of that. But they find it very difficult to differentiate between mental illness and actual criminal behaviour. And that's one of the issues that some people have mental health disorders where that affects their behaviours and some people are choosing. And that's where the big issue is, that the police just seem to put everyone in the one basket. They're mentally ill. They don't know what they're doing. There's no point in charging people because it's not going to stick. But oftentimes it's up to the psychiatrist to differentiate whether the person can understand and be competent in their decisions or not.
The police have just embarked on a mental health first aid course, and someone there has been using St Vincent's and the Fitzroy Police as an example to other people that are doing the course, that we have best practice or good practice and policies in place and addressing the needs of medical staff and of course the needs of the police in dealing with the situation.
We've got a really good relationship with local police, particularly at Fitzroy, where we've worked with Sergeant Ryle.
I think St Vincent's have a very good education of their staff to avoid and to identify risk.
We go in to try and meet the person's needs, but we do it with the resources that mean that if it does escalate, that people aren't going to get hurt. The patient isn't going to get hurt and we're not going to get hurt.
If we're coming in with an aggressive or violent natured person, we, as a patrol sergeant, we have a direct contact number to the triage desk here. We call them, we tell them we're coming in, give them a brief précis of what the situation is, pretty much what the ambulance do, so that they're prepared when we arrive.
When we take somebody out of the back of the van or the ambulance, we've actually got a quiet area where we can take the person where they're not going to be seen by other patients.
So it's quite an efficient turnover rather than, as it was prior, leaving the aggressive and mentally ill person in the back of the van for some period of time.
We've got this really good relationship with our security, and they've got a good relationship with the police.
I think you have to establish a good liaison and a partnership with your local hospital. I just encourage all of the hospital staff and the police to get together and address the issues and talk about it. And some of the practices we've got in place here shows that it can make everyone's life easier, so there's no reason why not to.
If we've got that sort of backup, if we know that help will be here pretty quickly, then we can take those, not really risks, but we can work with people who are perhaps more at higher risk, and we can do that with the security of knowing that we're going to be looked after. Because if the staff know they're going to be looked after, then they're going to provide better care for the patients.
There's 100 commercials every night about work safe and making sure that equipment and things don't hurt anybody. But what about the violence that's shown towards nurses? We deserve to work in a safe environment where we can carry out our job and care for the people we need to care for.
The people that work in this department provide a really good, caring, humane service for some of the most disadvantaged people in our community.
We're not here to be intimidated or assaulted. We have every right to feel safe in our workplace, and we should be able to feel safe in our workplace.
As a nurse, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to help you, but don't abuse me. I don't deserve it.
People just say, oh, that's part of your job, bad luck. It's not right. It's not fair either.
They probably deserve more protection because they're probably more vulnerable. They're not issued with equipment, but we are. The very nature of what they do, they're there to care for people, and they tolerate probably more violence and aggression than they should.
You've just heard real stories from real healthcare workers who have been victims of or witnessed occupational violence. You have been told by these victims that police play an important role in helping workers deal with such incidents. Occupational violence in healthcare services is real. It occurs many times every day somewhere in Victoria. The purpose of this DVD is to alert us to the high rate of occupational violence in healthcare settings, the impact this violence has on job satisfaction and the retention of nurses and other healthcare workers in the healthcare industry. When these workers report incidents to hospital management or the police, they expect to be taken seriously and to be treated with understanding and compassion. Every employee is entitled to a safe workplace. Like police, nurses and other healthcare workers often work in highly charged and volatile work environments. Just as we expect the support and empathy of colleagues, healthcare workers also need our full support. As police, we have professional obligations to provide a level of appropriate service to all victims during the initial action, the investigation and any subsequent court hearings. By simply providing the appropriate level of service in partnership with health service providers, police have a profound positive impact on the health and well-being of healthcare workers who have been the victims of occupational violence. Thank you.